I never believed in fate until Flight 447 taught me otherwise. My name is Lisa King, 50 years old, divorced twice, and completely certain I'd figured out how to navigate life alone. 3 hypnobirthing workshops in 3 cities had left me exhausted, and all I wanted was to sink into my window seat and disappear into sleep. But the universe had other plans. She appeared like an apparition in expensive linen, blonde hair catching the overhead light as she moved down the aisle. I watched her pause at the row across from mine, watched her face register the same mild annoyance I'd felt discovering my window seat actually faced the wing. Our eyes met for half a second. Blue, impossibly blue. Then she looked away, sliding gracefully into her seat. I told myself to stop staring. Told myself she was probably 30, maybe younger, and that my interest was merely aesthetic appreciation, the way you'd admire a painting in a museum. Nothing more. The plane lifted off from Atlanta, and I tried to focus on the clouds below, but my gaze kept drifting across the aisle. She worked on a laptop, fingers flying across keys with the confidence of someone who'd built something from nothing. A silver ring caught the light on her right hand. No wedding band. Not that it mattered. Turbulence hit 20 minutes into the flight, violent enough to make the cabin gasp collectively. Her coffee, black and still steaming, launched itself from her tray table in a perfect arc. Time slowed. I watched it spiral through the air, watched her reach for it too late, watched the dark liquid splash across my lap in a scalding wave. Damn it, I hissed, jumping up as much as the seatbelt allowed. She was already unbuckled, crossing the aisle with napkins in hand. I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry. It's fine, really. But I was dabbing uselessly at my cream-colored pants, knowing they were ruined. It's not fine. She knelt in the aisle beside my seat, her perfume surrounding me like a question I didn't know how to answer. Something with jasmine. No, gardenia, maybe both. Let me help. Her hand brushed my knee as she pressed napkins against the stain, and something electric shot through my body that had nothing to do with the coffee temperature. I froze. She looked up, those blue eyes widening slightly, and I wondered if she felt it too. That impossible recognition, like meeting someone you've known in dreams. I'm Sienna, she said softly. Lisa. The flight attendant appeared with club soda and more napkins, breaking whatever spell had wrapped around us. Sienna returned to her seat, but the air between us felt different now. Charged. Dangerous. I tried to read, failed, tried to sleep, failed worse. Every few minutes I'd catch her glancing my way, then quickly looking back at her laptop. After an hour of this torturous dance, she crossed the aisle again. I owe you new pants at minimum. Maybe dinner too? Her smile was uncertain, almost shy. I'm based in Montgomery. If that's where you're heading. I live there. The words came out too fast, too eager. I cleared my throat. But you don't owe me anything. Accidents happen. Sienna Jones. She handed me a business card, her fingers lingering against mine for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Founder of Lumiere Parfums. And I always pay my debts. The card was thick, expensive, embossed with silver lettering. I ran my thumb over the raised letters, feeling the texture, buying time to calm my racing pulse. You make perfume. I make memories you can wear. She leaned against the seat beside mine, close enough that I could see gold flecks in those impossible eyes. What do you do, Lisa? Hypnobirthing instructor. Hypnobirthing. She tested the word, her lips curving. So you help women breathe through pain. Something like that. Must take a special kind of strength. Being present for all those intimate moments, all that vulnerability. The way she said vulnerability made my stomach flip. I tucked her card into my pocket like contraband. It's rewarding work. The pilot announced our descent into Montgomery. Sienna straightened, and I felt the loss of her proximity like a physical ache. She returned to her seat, buckled in, but kept glancing over. Each look felt like a dare. When we landed, I told myself to walk away. Told myself that whatever this was, it couldn't be what my body insisted it was. I'd spent 50 years building a sensible life. Sensible divorces from sensible men. Sensible loneliness that felt safer than the alternative. But as I grabbed my carry-on from the overhead bin, Sienna was there beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. I meant it about dinner, Lisa. Call me. Then she was gone. disappearing into the crowd with a grace that felt practiced. I stood there like an idiot, clutching my ruined pants and her business card, feeling like Flight 447 had delivered me somewhere I'd never planned to go. The dangerous part? I wanted to call her. Wanted it with an intensity that terrified me. For 2 weeks, Sienna's business card lived in my wallet, burning a hole through the leather. I'd pull it out at stoplights, run my thumb over the embossed lettering, then shove it back before I could do something stupid. Like call her. Like admit that a 30-year-old woman with perfect bone structure and dangerous eyes had crawled under my skin. On day 15, I found myself standing outside Lumiere Parfums on Dexter Avenue, pretending I just happened to be in the neighborhood. The storefront gleamed with understated elegance, bottles displayed like art installations in the window. Through the glass, I could see her talking to a customer, her hands moving expressively as she described something. She looked up, our eyes locked. That smile spread across her face like sunrise. I should have walked away. Instead, I pushed through the door. Lisa King. She said my name like she'd been waiting for it. I was starting to think you threw away my card. I considered it. Honesty felt safer than the lies I'd been telling myself. The customer between us cleared her throat pointedly. Sienna apologized, finished the transaction with professional grace, then turned her full attention on me. The shop smelled like a garden at midnight, rich and complex and slightly forbidden. So what brings you here? Finally ready for those new pants? I was curious about the perfume. Not entirely a lie. Her smile sharpened. Of course. Just the perfume. She moved closer, studying my face with an intensity that made me feel simultaneously visible and exposed. You know what I think? I think you're the kind of woman who's been wearing the same scent for 20 years because it's safe, predictable. There's nothing wrong with predictable. There's everything wrong with it. She circled me slowly, and I felt like prey being assessed. Let me guess. Something floral. Something that smells like who you think you should be, not who you are. My throat went dry. You're making a lot of assumptions. Am I wrong? I wasn't wearing any perfume at all, hadn't for years, but I couldn't bring myself to admit it. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see the pulse at her throat. Come to the back. Let me do a proper consultation. Sienna, I don't think that's... It's just perfume, Lisa. But the way she said it made clear we both knew it wasn't. The back room was smaller, intimate, lined with hundreds of bottles like a library of memory and desire. She gestured to a velvet chair. I sat, feeling like I'd crossed some invisible threshold I couldn't uncross. She pulled out small strips of paper, began dabbing them with different scents. Close your eyes. Tell me what you feel. Feel? Scent is emotional. It bypasses your rational brain entirely. So stop thinking and just feel. I closed my eyes. She waved something under my nose. Cedar, smoke, something darker underneath. Too masculine, I said. Another strip. Roses, vanilla, utterly conventional. That's what I thought I should be, I murmured. And this? A third scent, complex and shifting. Jasmine, but not sweet. Salt air. Something burning at the edges. My eyes opened. She was inches away, watching me with an expression I couldn't name. That's dangerous. Is it? Her voice dropped lower. Or is it just honest? The air between us felt thick enough to swim through. I should leave. Should thank her politely and walk out before this went somewhere I couldn't come back from. Instead, I heard myself say, "What do you want from me, Sienna?" Want? She set down the perfume strips, leaned against the table in front of me. I want to have dinner with you. I want to know why a woman who helps people through their most vulnerable moments keeps her own walls so damn high. I want to figure out why I haven't stopped thinking about you since that plane. I'm 20 years older than you. Did I ask your age? I've been married, twice, to men. Did I ask about your past? I gestured helplessly between us. This isn't possible. Why? Because you've spent 50 years pretending to be someone you're not? She said it gently, but it landed like a punch. I saw you, Lisa, on that plane. I saw the way you looked at me. The way you're looking at me right now. You don't know anything about me. Then let me learn. She reached out, almost touched my face, then pulled back. One dinner. If you hate it, if it's weird or wrong or impossible, I'll never bother you again. But if it's not... She left the sentence hanging, dangerous and full of promise. Every rational part of my brain screamed to refuse. But I'd spent 5 decades listening to that voice, and where had it gotten me? 2 failed marriages, a lonely house, a life that felt like someone else's coat, well made but never quite fitting. One dinner, I heard myself say. Her smile could have lit the whole city. Tomorrow night, vintage year, 8 o'clock. Sienna. Just dinner, Lisa. I promise not to bite. She paused, eyes dancing. Unless you ask nicely. I stood on shaking legs, needing distance before I did something I couldn't take back. She handed me a small bottle as I headed for the door. On the house. The dangerous one. Try it tonight, see if it fits. I took it, our fingers brushing, and that electric shock ran through me again. In the doorway, I looked back. She was watching me with an expression that made my knees forget their function. Lisa? I'm really glad you threw away your sensible life long enough to walk through my door. I haven't thrown away anything. Not yet. She said it like a prophecy. But you will. I wore the perfume to dinner. Told myself it meant nothing even as I dabbed it on my wrists, behind my ears, places where my pulse could warm it into something alive. The scent shifted on my skin, becoming something uniquely mine yet entirely hers, and I wondered if that was the point all along. Vintage Year occupied a converted warehouse downtown, all exposed brick and soft lighting that made everyone look like they had secrets worth keeping. I arrived exactly on time, which meant she was already there, waiting at a corner table with wine glasses that caught the candlelight like tiny promises. You wore it. She stood as I approached, her eyes tracing me with undisguised appreciation. It suits you better than I imagined. It's just perfume. Keep telling yourself that. She pulled out my chair, her hand brushing my shoulder as I sat, and I felt that touch everywhere. We ordered without looking at menus, both of us knowing the food was just an excuse. The wine came first, dark and complicated, and she raised her glass. To unexpected turbulence. Is that what this is? Would you prefer I call it something else? She tilted her head, studying me. A midlife crisis, perhaps? A temporary insanity? How about a mistake? The best things usually are. She sipped her wine, never breaking eye contact. Tell me something true, Lisa. Something you've never told anyone. That's not a first date question. Who said this was a first date? Fair point. We'd already crossed too many lines for this to be anything conventional. I found myself talking before my brain could stop me. My marriages failed because I was never really there, not in the ways that mattered. I'd lie in bed next to these men and feel like I was playing a role in someone else's story. What role were you playing? The woman I thought I should be. Straight, settled, safe. And who are you really? She leaned forward, and the candlelight cast shadows across her face that made her look ancient and young at the same time. I don't know. I've spent so long being what everyone expected that I forgot to figure out what I wanted. Maybe that's not true. Her voice dropped lower, intimate despite the crowded restaurant. Maybe you always knew. You were just too scared to reach for it. The waiter appeared with appetizers neither of us remembered ordering. We picked at them, but the real hunger between us had nothing to do with food. She told me about building Lumiere from nothing, about her family's confusion when she chose perfume over law school, about the loneliness of success when everyone assumes your life is perfect. They think I have everything figured out, she said, spinning her wine glass between elegant fingers. Meanwhile, I'm 30 years old, still trying to make my mother understand that I'm never going to be the daughter she wanted, that I'm never going to want what she wants for me. What does she want? Grandchildren, a son-in-law, a life that looks good in Christmas cards. She laughed without humor. What about yours? Dead. Both of them. Years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. They died thinking I was normal. That's something, I guess. Her hand covered mine on the table, and this time neither of us pretended it was accidental. Her palm was warm, her fingers strong, and I let myself memorize the feeling because I knew it couldn't last. Lisa. She said my name like a prayer. Can I ask you something? You've been asking me things all night. Have you ever been with a woman? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. I could lie, should lie. Instead, I told the truth. Once, in college, we were drunk and curious and terrified, and afterward we never spoke about it again. She married a dentist, I married a lawyer. We both spent 20 years pretending it never happened. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't pretended? Every damn day. The confession shocked us both. Sienna's thumb traced circles on my wrist, right over my pulse, and I knew she could feel how fast my heart was racing. I'm not afraid, she said quietly, of this, of you, of what people might think. I wasted my 20s trying to make everyone comfortable with who I was. I'm done with that. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. I want to know you. I want to hear every story you've never told. I want to know what makes you laugh, and what keeps you awake at night, and what you taste like when... She stopped herself, but barely. The air between us could have spontaneously combusted. I finished my wine in one long swallow, needing something to do with my hands before they reached for her across the table. We should walk, I managed. I need air. We paid without dessert, both of us moving like the building was on fire. Outside, November air hit us cold and clarifying. She led me toward the riverfront, her hand finding mine in the darkness like it belonged there. The Alabama River moved silent and black beside us, reflecting city lights in fractured patterns. We walked without speaking for blocks, but our hands stayed locked together, and that felt like its own conversation. I haven't done this before, I finally said, whatever this is. Neither have I, not like this. She stopped walking, turned to face me. I've dated women, been in love, or thought I was, but I've never felt like this, like I'm standing on the edge of something that's going to change everything. Maybe we should step back from the edge. Maybe. She moved closer, close enough that I could smell my perfume on her clothes from where we'd sat so near. Or maybe we should jump. Sienna, I'm twice your age. People will talk. They'll say I'm taking advantage, that you're confused, that this is... Do you care what people say? I've cared my whole life. How's that working out for you? She said it gently, but it landed hard. We stood there on the riverfront while the city moved around us, invisible and irrelevant. Her face was inches from mine, her breath visible in the cold air, and I realized with absolute certainty that I was going to kiss her, that I'd been going to kiss her since the moment coffee spilled across my lap at 30,000 feet. Tell me to stop, she whispered. I can't. Tell me you don't want this. I can't do that either. She closed the distance between us, her lips meeting mine with a sureness that made the world tilt sideways. I'd been kissed before, hundreds of times, by men I'd promised to love forever. But I'd never been kissed like this. Like I was water and she'd been dying of thirst. Like my mouth held answers to questions she'd been asking her whole life. I kissed her back, my hands finding her waist, pulling her closer, and she made a sound low in her throat that shot straight through me. She tasted like wine and rebellion and every road I'd never taken. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, she rested her forehead against mine. So, still think this is a mistake? Absolutely. My voice was shaking. The biggest one I've ever made. Good. She smiled against my lips. I was worried you'd go back to playing it safe. 3 days after that kiss, I found myself avoiding Dexter Avenue like it carried plague. I'd drive blocks out of my way to keep from passing her shop, terrified I'd see her through the window and my carefully rebuilt walls would crumble again. My business partner Rachel noticed immediately. You're distracted, she said during our staff meeting, and you smell different. New perfume? Just trying something new. She studied me with the intensity of someone who'd known me for 15 years. Does this new thing have a name? Drop it, Rachel. So it does have a name. She grinned. About damn time you started living. But living felt like drowning. I'd lie awake at night replaying that kiss, the taste of her, the sound she made when I pulled her closer. Then morning would come, and I'd remember every reason this was impossible. The age gap, the judgment, the fact that I'd spent 50 years building a respectable life and she could destroy it in one careless moment. On day 4, she showed up at my studio. I was between clients, updating files at my desk when the bell chimed. I looked up and there she was, backlit by afternoon sun, looking like every answer to questions I'd been too scared to ask. You've been avoiding me. Not an accusation, just a fact. I've been busy. Liar. She closed the door behind her, flipped the sign to closed. You're terrified. Of course I'm terrified. Do you have any idea what we're risking? What people will say if they find out? Find out what? She moved closer, and I stood on instinct, needing some barrier between us. The desk felt inadequate. That you kissed me? That you wanted to? That you're still wanting to right now? Sienna, please. Please what? Please stop making you feel things? Please stop reminding you that you're alive? She circled my desk like she had in the perfume shop, and I tracked her movement like prey. Or please do it again? This is my place of business. I have a reputation to maintain. Your reputation. She stopped in front of me, so close I could count her eyelashes. Is that really what you're worried about? Or are you worried that if you let yourself have this, have me, you'll realize how much time you've wasted pretending to be someone you're not? The words hit like physical blows. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but she wasn't wrong. That was the terrifying part. She saw through me with the same clarity she brought to creating sense, reading beneath the surface to something essential and true. I don't know how to do this, I whispered. Do what? Want someone like this. Want you. I've spent my entire life being careful, being appropriate, and you make me want to be reckless. Her expression softened. Lisa, I'm not asking you to announce it to the world. I'm not asking you to be reckless. I'm just asking you to stop running. What if I can't stop? Then I'll chase you. She reached up, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, her fingers lingering against my neck. I'm very good at chasing what I want. My breath caught. You don't even know me. So let me learn. That's all I'm asking. Let me learn you. Her hand slid down my arm, found my hand, laced our fingers together. Show me the breathing techniques you teach. The ones that help people, through pain. What? You said you help women breathe through vulnerability. Teach me. I want to understand what you do. It felt like a deflection, but maybe that was the point. Maybe we needed to step back from the edge before we fell. I guided her to the yoga mat in the corner, had her sit cross-legged while I knelt beside her. It's about presence, I explained, trying to ignore how close we were. About being fully in your body instead of trapped in your head. Hand here. I placed her palm on her belly. Feel the breath move through you. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 6. She followed my instructions, eyes closing, and I watched her face relax into something unguarded. Beautiful. My hand rested on her shoulder to adjust her posture, and even that simple touch felt intimate. Like this? She murmured. Perfect. Her eyes opened, found mine. Lisa. Yes? I'm going to kiss you now. If you don't want me to, tell me to stop. I should have told her to stop. Should have stood up, walked away, protected myself from the inevitable heartbreak. Instead, I leaned in, meeting her halfway, and this kiss was different from the riverfront. Slower, deeper, like we had all the time in the world to explore each other. She pulled me closer, her hands sliding into my hair, and I let myself fall into it. Let myself stop thinking and just feel. Her mouth was soft but insistent, tasting of mint and promise. When she bit gently on my lower lip, I made a sound I didn't recognize as my own. God, you're beautiful, she whispered against my lips. Do you have any idea how beautiful you are when you stop being afraid? I'm not beautiful. I'm 50 years old with gray hair I've been coloring for a decade, and lines around my eyes that... She kissed me quiet. You're stunning. Your eyes. These incredible green eyes that see right through me. Your mouth, which I've dreamed about since that plane. The way you move like you're always ready to run but secretly hoping someone will make you stay. That's what's beautiful. I was crying and didn't know when it started. She kissed the tears away, her hands cradling my face like I was something precious. I'm scared, I admitted. I know. I'm going to hurt you, or you're going to hurt me. This can't end well. Maybe not. She pulled back enough to look at me properly. But maybe it's worth it anyway. Maybe the risk is the whole point. We sat there on the yoga mat while afternoon faded into evening, holding each other like lifelines. And for the first time in 50 years, I let myself imagine what it might feel like to stop running, to stay, to choose something just because I wanted it, consequences be damned. Sienna? Yeah? I'm still terrified. She smiled, soft and knowing. Good. That means it matters. Outside, the studio phone rang, breaking the spell. Reality crashed back in with all its complications, but her hand stayed in mine, warm and certain, and I thought maybe that was enough. For now, maybe that was enough. We fell into a pattern over the next 3 weeks. Coffee in the mornings at places outside Montgomery proper where no one knew us. Late dinners in her apartment above the shop where she'd cook while I watched. Both of us pretending this was normal, that we weren't building something impossible. She'd kiss me against the kitchen counter while pasta boiled over, and I'd lose track of time until my phone buzzed with some excuse I'd have to give Rachel about where I'd been. Then my business partner called with news that shattered the fragile world we'd built. Have you seen the society pages? Rachel's voice carried an edge I couldn't read. That perfume girl you've been friendly with? Sienna Jones? Apparently she's getting married. The words hit like ice water. What? Some business arrangement thing. Very hush-hush. My cousin works at the courthouse, said the license was filed last week. I thought you'd want to know, since you two seemed close. I hung up without saying goodbye, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. Married. She was getting married and hadn't said a word. 3 weeks of stolen kisses and whispered confessions, and she'd been planning a wedding the entire time. The charity gala was that night, some fundraiser for the arts that half of Montgomery's elite attended. I knew she'd be there. Her company was a sponsor. I dressed with mechanical precision, each movement fueled by betrayal that tasted like ash. I found her near the champagne fountain, radiant in black silk that made her look untouchable. She saw me and her face lit up, but I was already moving, already pulling her into an alcove away from the crowd. Engaged? The word came out sharp enough to cut. You're engaged and you didn't think to mention it? Her expression shifted, surprise giving way to something harder. Who told you? Does it matter? Is it true? Lisa, it's not what you think. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been playing games while I've been falling for you like an idiot. Games? Her laugh was bitter. You think this is a game to me? You, who spent 3 weeks terrified to be seen in public with me, lecturing me about honesty? That's different. How? How is it different? She moved closer, voice dropping low and dangerous. You want honesty? Fine. My family has been arranging marriages for 3 generations. My mother has a list of suitable men longer than my arm. And I'm tired, Lisa. Tired of fighting. Tired of explaining. Tired of being alone because I'm too scared to want what I actually want. So you're marrying some man instead. Marcus Chen is gay. Deeply, completely gay. He's in love with a man named David, and his family is even worse than mine. So we made a deal. A marriage on paper that gets both our families off our backs while we live our actual lives. The words took a moment to penetrate my anger. What? It's an arrangement. Legal protection. Nothing more. Marcus gets to stop pretending he's interested in the women his mother parades through, and I get to stop explaining why I'm 30 and single and showing no interest in grandchildren. You're marrying a stranger. I'm marrying a friend who understands what it's like to want something your family can never accept. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. This doesn't change us. If anything, it makes us possible. I'll have the cover of marriage, and we can what? Sneak around, be your dirty secret while you play happy homemaker with some arrangement? That's not fair. None of this is fair. My voice broke. You should have told me. Before I started imagining futures that were never possible. What futures, Lisa? You won't even hold my hand in public. You panic every time someone might see us together. At least I'm trying to find a way we can be together without you running scared every 5 minutes. The truth of it stung worse than the deception. She was right. I'd been hiding since the moment I met her, terrified of the judgment I'd face if anyone knew. And here she was actually doing something about the impossible situation we'd found ourselves in, and I was attacking her for it. I'm sorry, I whispered. You're right. I've been a coward. She closed the distance between us, her hand cupping my cheek. You've been scared. There's a difference. But Lisa, I need you to decide. Either you're in this with me, complications and all, or you're not. I can't keep wondering if you're going to disappear every time it gets hard. Behind us, the gala continued, oblivious. Music and laughter and people living uncomplicated lives. I looked at Sienna, really looked at her, and saw past the anger to the fear underneath. She was just as terrified as I was, just handling it differently. When's the wedding? 2 weeks, courthouse. Just Marcus, me, and witnesses. And after? After, he moves in with David unofficially. I keep my apartment, and maybe, if you're willing, we figure out what this is, what we are. I should have walked away, should have protected myself from the inevitable pain of loving someone I could never fully have. Instead, I pulled her against the wall where shadows hid us from view, and kissed her like the world was ending. She kissed back desperately, her hands fisting in my dress, and I tasted salt and realized one of us was crying. I'm in, I said against her mouth. God help me, I'm in. Yeah? Yeah. But Sienna, no more secrets. If we're doing this, we're doing it honestly, even if honest is messy. She smiled, that devastating smile that had wrecked me from the start. Messy I can do. It's the pretending I'm tired of. We stayed hidden in that alcove until someone called her name, until reality demanded we separate and return to being strangers in a crowd. But her hand squeezed mine once before letting go, and I felt that promise all the way home. 2 weeks until a wedding I'd never attend. 2 weeks until everything changed again. And somehow, impossibly, I was choosing to stay for it. Marcus Chen was nothing like I expected. Where I'd imagined awkwardness and forced pleasantries, I found genuine warmth and a wicked sense of humor that had me laughing within 5 minutes of meeting him. Sienna had arranged coffee at a quiet place in Prattville, far enough from Montgomery that we could speak freely. So you're the reason she's been floating around the shop like she invented happiness, Marcus said, stirring sugar into his espresso. I was beginning to worry she'd fallen for someone completely unsuitable. Turns out I was right. You're way too good for her. Marcus, Sienna warned, but she was smiling. What? It's true. Lisa here has that whole sophisticated older woman thing happening. Very Grace Kelly. Meanwhile, you're over here, stress-eating croissants and panicking about profit margins. I liked him immediately. More than that, I understood why Sienna trusted him. He had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the sort of person who made you feel safe telling secrets. David doesn't know I'm here, he admitted, his humor fading. He thinks this whole marriage idea is insane, that we should just come out, deal with the fallout, live authentically. He said the last word with air quotes. But he doesn't understand what it's like. His parents disowned him years ago. Mine still think prayer and therapy can fix me. How long have you two been together? I asked. 6 years. Living separately, pretending to be roommates, sneaking around like teenagers. He looked at Sienna. Sound familiar? We're not sneaking, she protested. You absolutely are. But that's fine. That's the point of this whole arrangement. You two get to be together without the world weighing in. David and I get legal protections and families off our backs. Everyone wins. Except it felt like losing. Sitting there listening to him explain the logistics, the carefully constructed lie they'd tell, I kept thinking about all the years I'd already wasted hiding. And here I was, signing up for more of the same. Lisa's having doubts, Sienna said quietly, reading my face. Of course she is. So am I. So are you, don't lie. Marcus leaned forward. But here's the thing. This isn't forever. It's a bridge. Something to buy us time until we figure out how to live the lives we actually want. Maybe in 5 years, society catches up. Maybe our families do. Or maybe we just get brave enough not to care. But for now, this keeps us safe. Safe. The word I'd built my entire life around, and it still tasted like compromise. 2 weeks later, I sat in my car outside the courthouse while Sienna married someone else. I'd promised not to come, promised to trust her, but I couldn't stay away. I watched her walk up the steps in a simple cream dress, watched Marcus take her hand, watched them disappear inside to sign papers that would legally bind them while meaning nothing at all. My phone buzzed. A text from her, I wish you were here. I typed back, me too. 30 minutes later, they emerged as husband and wife. Marcus kissed her cheek for the benefit of his mother, who'd insisted on attending. Sienna looked at the car where I sat hidden, and even from that distance, I felt her gaze like a physical touch. That night, she came to my house for the first time. I'd been living in the same place for 12 years, a modest craftsman with a garden I pretended to maintain. She walked through the door still wearing that cream dress, and I kissed her before she could speak. "Mrs. Chen?" I said against her lips. "Don't. That's not real. This is real." She was right. Everything else was paperwork and pretense, but this, her mouth on mine, her hands sliding into my hair, this was the only truth that mattered. I walked her backward toward the bedroom, both of us fumbling with zippers and buttons, desperate to prove that nothing had changed even though everything had. We fell onto my bed in a tangle of limbs and discarded clothing. I'd imagined this moment for weeks, but the reality was better and worse than my fantasies. Better because she was finally, completely here with me. Worse because I knew I'd never fully have her, not in the ways that counted. She pulled me on top of her, and I forgot to think, forgot to worry. There was only her skin against mine, the sounds she made when I kissed down her neck, the way she whispered my name like a prayer. I learned the geography of her body slowly, reverently, memorizing every curve and hollow. She touched me with a confidence that should have felt foreign but instead felt like coming home. We moved together in the darkness, finding rhythms and responses, and when she finally shattered beneath my hands, the sound she made was my name mixed with something wordless and sacred. Afterward, we lay wrapped in sheets in each other, breathing hard, and I thought maybe this was enough. Maybe stolen moments could sustain us. "I love you," she whispered. "I should have said it before. I love you." The words hung in the air, terrifying and perfect. I'd spent 50 years afraid of this feeling, and here it was, offered freely by someone who should have been impossible. "I love you too," I said, and meant it more than I'd meant anything. We stayed like that until dawn painted the windows gold. She traced patterns on my skin, told me about growing up with a mother who measured worth and social standing, about building her business from nothing, because she needed something that was completely hers. I told her about my failed marriages, about the loneliness that felt safer than vulnerability, about waking up at 45 and realizing I'd spent my whole life as a stranger to myself. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "The marriages, the pretending." "I regret the time it took. But if I hadn't lived that life, I wouldn't be here now, with you." That's very philosophical for someone who just had her worldview shattered. "Is that what happened?" She rolled on top of me, her hair falling around us like a curtain. "You tell me." I pulled her down for a kiss that answered better than words. Yes, my world had shattered. But maybe that's what needed to happen. Maybe I needed to break apart completely before I could rebuild into something real. We built our secret life with the precision of architects designing around a flaw in the foundation. Sienna visited my studio for consultations twice a week. I attended her product launches as a friend and advisor. To the world, we were two professional women with overlapping social circles. Behind closed doors, we were something else entirely. She kept clothes at my house in the back of my closet where no one would look. Her toothbrush lived in my bathroom drawer. Small intimacies that felt enormous because we had to hide them. I'd wake with her wrapped around me, breathing softly against my neck, and for those first drowsy moments, I'd forget we were living a lie. Marcus played his role perfectly. He showed up for the occasional dinner where Sienna's mother made an appearance, held her hand for photos, then disappeared back to David's apartment where he actually lived. The whole arrangement felt like a stage production where everyone knew their lines except the audience. 3 months in, Rachel started asking questions I couldn't answer. "You seem different," she said over lunch at our usual spot. "Lighter, like you finally figured out how to be happy." "I'm just enjoying life." "With someone?" "Rachel." "Fine. Keep your secrets. But whoever she is, she's good for you." She said it casually, like she hadn't just dropped a bomb. "What, you thought I didn't notice? Honey, I've known you were gay since before you did. I was just waiting for you to catch up." My coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. "I never said—" "You didn't have to. The way you look when you talk about that perfume, girl. The way you've started wearing actual color instead of your usual beige armor. You're in love, and I'm happy for you." It's complicated. Love usually is. She squeezed my hand. But Lisa, you deserve to be happy. Don't let complicated steal that from you. If only complicated were the worst of our problems. The real issue came that afternoon when Sienna texted, "Emergency. Mom's at the shop, insists on lunch with me and Marcus. Can you come? I need a buffer." I shouldn't have gone, should have let her handle her mother alone. But I heard the panic in those words and found myself driving to Capital Oyster Bar where apparently Elizabeth Jones had decided to inspect her son-in-law's commitment to her daughter. They were already seated when I arrived, Sienna looking trapped between Marcus and a woman who could have been her older clone. Same blonde hair, same blue eyes, but where Sienna's held warmth, her mother's were calculating. "Mrs. Jones, what a surprise," I said, approaching their table. "Lisa, thank God." Sienna grabbed the excuse. "Mother, you remember Lisa King? I told you she's been helping develop a scent line for birthing centers." "Of course." Elizabeth's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How lovely that you happened to be here." She knew I hadn't just happened. I could see it in the way she assessed me, cataloging every detail like evidence. I sat anyway, letting Sienna's knee press against mine under the table, a lifeline in dangerous waters. Marcus was charming as always, deflecting Elizabeth's invasive questions about grandchildren and why they were living separately so soon after marriage. But I caught Sienna's hand trembling when she reached for her water glass, saw the mask she wore slip just slightly. "You seem very close," Elizabeth said, her gaze ping-ponging between Sienna and me. "How long have you known each other?" "Few months," I answered smoothly. "Your daughter has a gift for understanding what people need. Makes her easy to work with." "And yet she married Marcus here." Elizabeth's tone suggested she found the whole arrangement suspicious. So sudden, so private. One might think they were hiding something. "Mother, please." Sienna's voice held a warning. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. You've never shown interest in men. And suddenly you're married to one? It's peculiar." The table went silent. Marcus reached for Sienna's hand, playing his part, but I saw the color drain from her face. Saw her scrambling for some response that wouldn't shatter the careful fiction we'd built. "I fell in love," Sienna said quietly. "Is that so hard to believe?" "With him?" Elizabeth didn't even look at Marcus. "Or with the idea of getting me off your back about settling down?" I wanted to defend her, wanted to tell this woman exactly what I thought of her judgment. But Sienna's knee pressed harder against mine, begging me to stay silent. So I sat there drowning in words I couldn't say while Marcus filled the awful silence with platitudes about love and timing. Lunch ended with Elizabeth unconvinced and Sienna barely holding herself together. She excused herself to the bathroom, and I followed a minute later, finding her gripping the sink like it might anchor her. "She knows," Sienna whispered. "She's always known. She just can't prove it." "Then prove her right. Stop hiding." From the woman who told me at 15 that girls like that were unnatural? Who made me promise I'd never embarrass the family? She turned to face me, mascara smudged. "You don't understand what it's like." "I understand better than you think. I hid for 30 years longer than you've been alive, and it cost me everything. Not everything." She moved into my arms and I held her while she shook. "You found me. And I'm terrified of losing you to this lie we're living." "You won't lose me." But I could already feel her slipping away, the weight of her mother's judgment pressing down on both of us. We stayed hidden in that bathroom for 10 minutes before reality demanded we return to pretending. That night at my house, she was different, quieter. When I tried to kiss her, she pulled back. "What if she's right?" Sienna said. "What if I married Marcus to avoid actually dealing with who I am? What if I'm using this arrangement as another form of hiding?" "Are you?" "I don't know anymore. All I know is, I love you, and that should be simple, but instead it's this impossible thing we have to hide. And I'm tired, Lisa, so tired." I pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heartbeat against my chest. "Then stop hiding. Divorce Marcus. Come out. Live your actual life. And lose my business, my family, everything I've built? You'll have me." "Is that enough?" She asked it so quietly I almost missed it. Am I really ready to burn down my whole life for something that might not last? The question hung between us like poison, because she was right to ask it. We'd known each other less than 6 months. How could I promise forever when I'd failed at it twice before? I don't know, I admitted. But I know what happens when you choose safety over truth. You wake up at 50 realizing you've never actually lived. She kissed me then, desperate and sad. And we made love like we were trying to convince ourselves this was worth the cost. But afterward, lying in the darkness, I felt the distance growing between us like a chasm neither of us knew how to cross. Marcus showed up at my studio on a Tuesday morning looking like he hadn't slept in days. I knew before he spoke that everything was about to change again. David wants to move to San Francisco, he said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. He got a job offer, 6 figures, full benefits, everything we've dreamed about. But it means leaving Montgomery, leaving this arrangement. When? 3 months. And Lisa, I can't keep doing this. Pretending to be married while the person I actually love is building a life somewhere else. It's killing me. I understood more than he knew. Have you told Sienna? Last night. She didn't take it well. He rubbed his face. Her mother's already suspicious. If I leave, if we divorce, Elizabeth will know the whole thing was fake, and then she'll start asking questions we can't answer. So what are you saying? I'm saying Sienna needs to decide. Come clean about everything, or watch her whole carefully constructed world fall apart anyway. Either way, she's going to lose something. He left, and I sat staring at my phone for an hour before texting her. No response. I tried calling. Voicemail. By evening, panic had settled into my chest like a stone. Rachel found me still at the studio at 8, staring at nothing. Go to her, she said simply. Whatever's happening, you're stronger together than apart. I drove to Sienna's apartment, the one above her shop that Marcus had never actually lived in. She answered the door in sweatpants and one of my stolen shirts, eyes red from crying. He told you, she said. He told me. She let me in, and the apartment looked like a storm had hit it. Papers scattered everywhere, half-packed boxes, her laptop open to divorce attorney websites. I'm doing it, she said, filing for divorce. Marcus deserves to be happy and I'm done being the reason he has to hide. She turned to face me, and I saw something fierce in her expression. I'm done hiding, period. Sienna, think about this. Your mother, your business, will survive or they won't. But I can't keep living like this, sneaking around, pretending you're just a friend when you're the only real thing in my life. She moved closer, took my hands. Come away with me. What? New Orleans. There's a perfume conference next week. Come with me. Let's have 3 days where we don't have to hide, where we can just be us. Every rational part of my brain screamed to refuse, to protect myself from the inevitable crash. But I looked at her standing there, offering everything despite the cost, and I couldn't say no. Okay, yes, let's go. New Orleans hit us like a fever dream. The hotel she'd booked overlooked the French Quarter, all wrought iron balconies and history soaked in bourbon. We checked in as a couple, no explanations, no hiding, and the freedom of it was intoxicating. That first night, we skipped the conference welcome dinner and walked through the quarter until we found a jazz club, so small we had to stand. She pulled me close as the music wrapped around us, her body moving against mine in ways that would have scandalized Montgomery. I could get used to this, she said against my ear. Being irresponsible, being free. Back at the hotel, she undressed me slowly, reverently, like she was unwrapping something precious. We'd made love dozens of times by now, but this felt different, urgent, like we both knew something was ending and beginning simultaneously. I kissed down her body, learning her responses all over again, and when she cried out my name, there was no one to hear except me, no walls to hide behind, just us and the truth of what we were to each other. Afterward, we lay tangled in expensive sheets while the city hummed below. She propped herself on one elbow, studying my face in the moonlight coming through the balcony doors. I'm going to tell them, she said, when we get back. My mother, everyone. I'm going to tell them about you, about us. Sienna, you don't have to do that for me. I'm not doing it for you, I'm doing it for me, because I'm 30 years old, and I've built a successful business, and I'm in love with an incredible woman, and I'm done apologizing for any of it. She kissed me softly. I want to introduce you as my partner. I want to hold your hand in public. I want to stop living in the margins of my own life. What about your family? What about them? They can accept me as I am, or they can leave. I'm tired of shrinking myself to fit their expectations. Her hand traced my jaw, my neck, lower. Besides, you told me once that you wasted 30 years hiding. I don't want that. I want to look back at 50 and know I was brave enough to choose love when it mattered. The conviction in her voice broke something open in me. All my fears about age and judgment and respectability seemed suddenly small compared to what she was offering. Not just her body or her time, but her whole future. She was choosing us. Consequences be damned, and I realized I needed to do the same. I love you, I said. Not as a secret, not as something we hide. I love you, and I want everyone to know. She smiled, that devastating smile that had wrecked me from the start. Yeah? Yeah. So let's burn it all down together. Let's be brave. We made love again as the city woke outside our window. And this time it felt like a promise, like we were sealing some pact with the universe that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The conference that day was a blur. We attended sessions side by side, her hand finding mine under the table during presentations. At the networking lunch, she introduced me to colleagues not as her friend, but as her partner. And when one of them raised an eyebrow, she just smiled and squeezed my hand tighter. That felt good, she said as we left. Terrifying but good. Just wait until Montgomery finds out. Let them find out. I'm done being afraid of people who never bothered to know the real me anyway. She pulled me into an alley between buildings, kissed me in broad daylight with tourists walking past. I'm only afraid of losing you. Everything else is just noise. We spent 3 days in New Orleans, living the life we wanted, instead of the one we'd been assigned. And when we flew home, hands clasped during takeoff, I knew everything was about to change. But for the first time in 50 years, I was ready for it. Sienna's new perfume launch was scheduled for a Saturday evening at her shop, the kind of event where Montgomery's social elite showed up to be seen. I stood in my closet for 20 minutes trying to decide what you wear when you're about to blow up your entire life. Settled on black. Simple. Honest. Rachel drove with me for moral support. You don't have to do this, she said for the 10th time. Yes, I do. The shop glowed like a jewel box, string lights wrapped around the windows, champagne flowing freely. I saw Elizabeth Jones the moment I walked in, her expression calculating as always. Saw Marcus with David, the two of them finally together publicly, holding hands like they'd waited their whole lives for permission. And then I saw Sienna. She wore emerald green that made her eyes impossible to ignore, and when she spotted me, her whole face transformed. She crossed the room like it was empty except for us. You came, she breathed. Where else would I be? She took my hand right there in front of everyone. I felt the room notice, felt the whispers start like wind before a storm. Elizabeth's champagne glass paused halfway to her lips, but Sienna just smiled, laced our fingers together, and led me to the small stage she'd set up. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice steady despite the hand trembling in mine. Most of you know me as the girl who makes pretty smells, but tonight I want to introduce you to something more personal, a new scent called turbulence. She held up the bottle, amber liquid catching the light. I created this to capture a moment, the moment I stopped pretending to be someone I wasn't, the moment I met someone who made me want to be brave. She turned to me, and the room disappeared, the moment I fell in love with Lisa King. The silence was deafening. I saw Elizabeth set down her glass with a crack. Saw people pulling out phones, already texting the gossip. Saw a few smiles in the crowd from people who'd been waiting for this moment longer than we'd known ourselves. My mother told me I'd embarrass the family if I lived my truth, Sienna continued, her voice gaining strength. That loving a woman was something shameful, something to hide. But standing here now, looking at the only person who's ever seen me completely, I don't feel shame. I feel lucky. Elizabeth stood, her chair scraping loud in the silence. She looked at her daughter with something between rage and grief. You're throwing everything away. No, Mother. I'm finally holding on to what matters. I won't support this. The family won't support this. You'll lose everything. Then I lose everything. Sienna squeezed my hand tighter. But I keep her, and that's enough. Elizabeth walked out, taking half the crowd with her. The ones who stayed were Rachel and Marcus and David, and a handful of others who clapped until the sound filled the shop. Sienna pulled me close, kissed me in front of everyone who remained, and I tasted salt and freedom and tomorrow. The weeks that followed were harder than either of us expected. Elizabeth made good on her threats, cutting Sienna off financially. Several wholesale accounts dropped Lumiere, not wanting to be associated with scandal. Her mother's friends whispered in every restaurant, every store, making Montgomery feel suddenly small and hostile. But Sienna never wavered. She downsized the shop, focused on online sales, built her business back from scratch with fierce determination. Marcus and David moved to San Francisco, but they called every week to check in, to remind us we weren't alone. And gradually, slowly, we built something real. We bought the house in Old Cloverdale that Sienna had dreamed about, with a porch swing and a garden neither of us knew how to maintain. Adopted Sappho, who turned out to be part terror, part therapy. Rachel became a fixture at our Sunday dinners, bringing wine and unsolicited advice we pretended not to need. 1 year after that flight, we stood in our kitchen at midnight, and Sienna presented me with a small wrapped box. Inside was a bottle of Turbulence, custom-made, with an inscription. For the woman who taught me that 50 isn't too late, and 30 isn't too young, and love doesn't follow any rules but its own. I have something for you too, I said, pulling out the velvet box I'd been carrying for weeks. Inside were matching rings, simple silver bands that caught the light like promises. Lisa King, are you proposing to me? Maybe. If you're not too busy being scandalized by an older woman. She kissed me, tasting of tears and laughter and everything we'd fought for. I'd marry you tomorrow if Alabama would let me. Then we'll get married somewhere that will. And maybe we'll come back. Or maybe we won't. But we'll be together. And that's the only geography that matters. She slipped the ring on my finger, and I did the same for her. We stood there in our kitchen, in our house, in our life that looked nothing like the ones we were supposed to have, and everything like the one we needed. Outside, Montgomery slept, oblivious or judging, or slowly learning to accept. It didn't matter anymore. We'd chosen each other over comfort, over approval, over every safe lie we'd ever told ourselves. And standing there with her in my arms, I finally understood what it meant to come home. Not to a place, to a person, to the truth of who you are when you stop pretending. 50 years old, and I was finally, impossibly, completely alive.